You know, there's something really special about a tart that looks like it came from Parisian patisserie window, but this one happens to be completely plant-based. 5 little lemon tarts with rosemary citrus gel on top that makes people stop mid-sentence when they see it. Let's start. The foundation of any tart is the shell, and a good shell can make or break everything that comes after it. So into the bowl, add plain flour, icing sugar, salt, and this is optional, but I really recommend it, almond flour. That almond flour adds a gentle nuttiness and improves the crumb texture in a way that is subtle but actually noticeable. Now here's the first thing most people get wrong with pastry, and that is gluten. The sugar and fat in this dough are working together to slow down gluten development, which is exactly what we want, and that is what keeps Pâte Sucrée crisp. Now let's add a block style cold vegan butter, as high a fat percentage as you can find, ideally around 82%. Cut into cubes and add to the mixer, or rub in with your fingertips if mixing by hand, until you have something that looks like damp sand. Should not be any visible chunks of butter. Then gradually add your cold plant milk, 30 to 40 milliliters. We're looking for the dough to just come together. The moment it does, we stop. Do not knead this. The second you start working the dough, you're developing gluten, and that means shrinkage in the oven and tough bite. Flatten it, wrap it, and into the fridge it goes. Minimum 1 hour, but I usually do overnight. Resting does two things. It lets the flour fully hydrate, and it lets any gluten that did develop relax completely. This is the step that separates a shell tart that holds its shape from one that slides down the sides of the ring. While the dough rests, we move the citrus gel. It looks incredibly impressive, and it's actually one of the more forgiving components as long as you follow one rule. I will get to that in a moment. Into a saucepan, 200 grams of water, the zest of 1 lemon, and 6 to 8 grams of fresh rosemary. Heat this gently to around 80 degrees. You will see a light steam, and then turn off the heat. Cover it and let it steep for 15 to 20 minutes. You're doing a proper infusion, the same way you would make a good herbal tea. The rosemary will give you that pine-like, slightly resinous note that pairs beautifully with lemon. But when you strain it, please don't squeeze every last drop out of herbs, as over-extracting rosemary turns it medicinal and bitter. Just simply strain it. Return the liquid to the pan, add glucose syrup, and this is what gives the gel elasticity and stops it from being so brittle. Then add sugar with salt and 2 grams of agar-agar. Now to the rule. Agar must reach a full boil to set. Hold it there for 30 to 40 seconds. If you don't do this, the gel won't set properly and you will end up with a sad, wobbly puddle. Once it's boiled, take it off the heat and add your 40 grams of fresh lemon juice. The acidity goes in after boiling, so it stays bright and sharp as heat dulls the lemon flavor. Pour this into a square frame. I have lined mine with cling film for easy release, and let it set at room temperature. Target thickness is 2 to 3 millimeters. You will see it set within minutes, then into the fridge until we are ready. The dough has had its rest. Now we roll. Aim for 2 to 3 millimeters. Use a ruler if you need to. I do it all the time. There's no shame in precision. What I'm using here are perforated tart rings, which means we skip blind baking entirely. The perforations allow the heat to circulate directly around the pastry, giving you the perfectly even bake from all sides. No baking beans is required. It's genuinely one of the best things you can invest in if you make tarts regularly. Once it's rolled, I give it a quick 10-minute freeze, just firm enough to handle cleanly. Then I line the rings immediately. Work quickly because the dough softens really fast. If it starts to get soft and floppy on you, pop it back in the fridge for 5 minutes. To trim the edge, I use back of the knife and not the blade side. You drag it away from the ring and you get a clean, flat edge without any tearing. Then back into the freezer before baking. When cold pastry goes into a hot oven is what gives you those beautiful crisp sides. Bake at 170 degrees fan for around 20 minutes until the shells are pale and golden color. While they bake, the kitchen starts to smell incredible. This is my favorite part of the whole process. Once they come out and cool cool down, I use a microplane to very gently shave the top edge of the shell. It removes any unevenness and gives you that clean professional finish. It takes 10 seconds and makes a huge visual difference. This layer lives inside the tart between the shell and the curd. It does two things. It adds a texture contrast, that satisfying crunch against the silky curd, and it acts as a gentle moisture barrier, keeping the shell crisp for longer. 70 grams of coconut flake, toasted until golden. Since I already had toasted shavings, I just blended that to a coarse consistency. Melt your dark chocolate in a bowl, mix coconut, sugar, salt, and melted chocolate. Set aside for tart assembly. Coconut and lemon is one of those flavor combinations that feels both tropical and somehow very classic. In the saucepan, add fresh lemon juice, and please use fresh. Then sugar, a pinch of turmeric for that gorgeous yellow color, the zest of 2 lemons, and before we add plant milk, pour some to cornstarch and mix that into a slurry. Then add the rest of the milk in the pot with everything else. Heat gently, whisking constantly. You'll feel it thicken. Keep going until it's glossy and holds a trail when you drag the whisk through it. Remove from the heat and add vanilla and vegan butter. This is the step that takes it from the home cook to restaurant quality. The blending breaks down the starch network and emulsifies the fat completely into the base. The result is a curd that is mirror smooth with the mouthfeel that is genuinely silky rather than gluey. Taste it, adjust, maybe a little more lemon if it needs brightness, or maybe a pinch of salt if it feels a bit flat. I'm assembling on a small paper board today, which makes it easy to move the tarts around without touching them. First, the coconut crisp goes in, smooth it evenly, then the lemon curd will right to the edge. To level the curd, I used an offset spatula to make it perfectly smooth. Into the fridge or freezer if you're in a hurry to set completely. Now, I changed my mind about the presentation surface. The paper boards were fine, but once I saw them against the stone slab, I knew immediately. Sometimes you make that call at the last moment. Just trust your eye. The gel has set beautifully, and I'm using a round cookie cutters slightly smaller than the tart diameter, so it sits inside the shell rather than right up to the edges. Measure it first, cut cleanly in one press, do not drag. Lift each disc carefully and lay it on top of the curd. It should settle softly with a gentle wobble. Then, and I love this detail, a very light brush of olive oil over the surface of the gel, just enough to give it a subtle sheen. You don't want it oily. It catches the light beautifully and adds a whisper flavor that complements the lemon and rosemary at the same time. I love it. For the garnish, a few small pieces of fresh clover per tart, nothing more. When a component is this cute, you don't need to do much. The restraint is the point. Look at that cross section. That's the balance we were looking for. Bright, clean lemon, a gentle herbal note from that rosemary and olive oil, the soft crunch of coconut, and a pastry shell that holds together perfectly. Can you believe it? It's completely plant-based, and I promise you, nobody would ever know. If you make these, take your time with the dough, don't skip the rest, and boil that agar. Those are the 3 things that matter most. Everything else is just joy of baking. And bye! I will see you in the next one.